forgive me, and knowing that it really is their choice to decide to forgive me for that or not. But to really model that humility and giving them kind of the power over their own response to a situation, and not forcing a certain kind of answer, but just knowing that, okay, here I've come to them with my observation of what has happened, my request for forgiveness, and then letting them have kind of their own process and working through that. And we see our kids do that with each other on their own, right?
Yeah.
So whenever they have conflict with each other, we see them without prompting now. We've been practicing at this for however many years now, seeing them go to each other and say, hey, I yelled and I shouldn't have. I felt really angry, and I'm sorry that I hurt you. Will you forgive me? It gives you hope for the future that we are doing some things to, like you said, do better, and to continue to grow towards health.
They're usually so quick to forgive, I find, when I ask. And sometimes I feel myself saying, no, I should be punished a little more, because I really should, you shouldn't be so quick to forgive me. But that's more my own internal
Yes.
conflicts. But I'm always surprised, they're like, yeah, that's okay, Dad. No problem. No big deal. I forgive you. And I'm like, yeah, but I really yelled at you and I need to feel bad about it for longer.
Yeah.
Don't I need to do some penance, some more flagellation, and, get the hair shirt out? I don't have a hair shirt. I'm not sure where you would get a hair shirt today, but
Good Lord.
Maybe what we can do is move into the process. So, and then kind of talk through the different parts of the process. Each step has its own maybe things that we can talk about along the way, and kind of explain how we do it. It's a 4-part process, and there's a great PDF that I'll share on the show notes. Why don't you start with observations?
Okay, well, I am certainly no expert in this.
Me either.
Cool. Well, good. Well, you feel free to jump in and correct me, or fill in parts that maybe I have left out. So step 1, observation. This is when we basically are observing, stating what we see, what we hear as the thing that is bringing up our reactions to a situation. So in the observation step, we want to describe what we're reacting to, and we want to describe it without judgment, right? So neutrally, kind of without emotion, or I guess my understanding is so that this helps really make sure that you and the other person have the same context for the feelings and everything that's going on. So maybe kind of it would be great if I had examples, but feel free to jump in with one. But basically, just to make sure that both people are clear about what's going on. I know our feelings and all the things in a situation totally cloud and paint how we respond to a situation. So sometimes just observing and stating what's actually happening in reality can really recalibrate and help kind of bring you back to being able to look at something objectively.
Yeah, this step, it seems like pretty easy on paper, that the first step is just to make an observation about what you see, but we're not like Data on Star Trek The Next Generation with like no feelings, where we just like observe and report like a robot.
Right.
We're normally like, if we're in a conflict or in a conversation where we're trying to talk about something we're upset about, or we disagree with somebody, we normally jump to judgments or making value assessments. With our kids, it's like, you never clean up your room, or I don't know what else. But with our friends or our spouses, we might say, you're always bugging me about this thing, or something like that. Like, we rush to that judgment piece. We're making a value assessment that whatever's happening is good or bad. And that's the first thing that we go to. It almost takes, I think at first, practice to stop yourself long enough to think about it. And that step is really, really hard. Just being able to, before words come out of your mouth, say, am I making a judgment or am I just describing the situation? An observation isn't, you never do this, you always do that, because that has that judgment quality to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were rude. Fill in the blank.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It would be more like you said, and then repeating the words. You said my feet smell really bad. It's good to take sort of silly examples. I think it helps in thinking through it. You said my feet smell really bad. And so then you just made an observation because the person did say that.
Did say that, right.
That your feet smell bad. And so then you're not passing judgment on them, but you are saying this is what happened. And sometimes maybe there's a difference in perspective on what happened in some kind of conversation. They might say, that's not exactly what I said, or I can see how it looked like that, but I was actually doing this other thing. So when you make the observation without judgment, there's more room for somebody to correct you without responding defensively. You don't set somebody off.
Right. There's just, it increases the likelihood that they're going to hear what you have to say next and to even be able to proceed with the conversation.
Yeah, I don't know about you. It doesn't take much to start a fight a lot of times, right? It's just saying the wrong thing, and then it brings up all this other stuff, and people react defensively, and all of a sudden you're in a fight about something or a conflict. A lot of it really is being more intentional and being more thoughtful about things, which is hard because we have to slow down.
Right. And so, exactly. I mean, and sometimes our emotions just totally just kick into gear. And I frequently am having to tell myself to just take a minute, and that I don't have to respond to every situation immediately. It's okay to stop, or it's also okay to say, I'm going to need some time to think about this before I respond, because I want to be careful in how I respond. So slowing down, important.
It's very countercultural in our sort of instant communication, social media. We feel this urge to need to respond and need to be in the thick of it, responding to things so quickly. It's okay to slow down and know. I have such a hard time, especially once maybe an argument or a conversation, a discussion about a topic, any of those things, I have such a hard time being able to step away and let go, to take time before coming back. All right. So the second step in the process is to share your feelings. Mm-hmm. And this is, I think, a step that people think they know already, maybe. But once you start digging in, the male percentage of the population probably gets the short end of the stick in a couple ways when it comes to emotions. One, we're sort of stereotyped as either not having emotions or not being connected to our emotions. Mm-hmm. And culturally in the United States and North America, we're not taught a lot. I mean, overall, we're probably not taught a lot about our emotions in general, male and female, but men in particular also get some negative messages about being in touch with your emotions at all. This step, I think it takes a lot of work just to be more in touch with what it is you are feeling.
Sure. And I would add too, it can be really tricky distinguishing between thoughts and feelings, at least for me. So, and I have to really work hard at, okay, is this a feeling, or is this like, I'm thinking something about what this person is doing, and they're different, to really kind of dig in at what I actually am feeling instead of ascribing like an interpretation of how things may be going.
Yeah. How would you describe the difference between thoughts and feelings?
Okay. I don't know if this is accurate or not, but I was kind of reading up in preparation for today. And so one example would be for me to say, I feel lonely, That's a feeling about how I feel versus I feel like you don't love me. Really, I'm feeling lonely. But this other thing is like what I'm thinking about what's happening, and not really getting at the feeling behind it.
Yeah, and your example brings up this whole problem with the way that we use language. So we use the language of feeling often to describe thoughts. And it makes it so hard when that's just what we were taught growing up. We weren't even taught it. It just was part of the culture. That's how people talk all the time. I feel like you're doing this. And so that's a great clue. Anytime you're starting a sentence with I feel like, it's probably a thought, not a feeling. The other thing I found helpful is the feelings lists, or like a inventory of feelings, and I'll share that as well on the show notes. When I talk to my kids sometimes too, I say, maybe I notice that they're feeling kind of down, or they're angry about something, or maybe I'm just asking them, and I'll say, how are you feeling? Or, how's it going? And, most of the time the answer is something like, I'm good, or I'm tired. Those are not feelings. Those are actually just generic kind of placeholders for not talking about your feelings mostly. You can be tired. You can feel tired, I think, but being in touch with your emotions might be, I'm feeling overwhelmed or exhausted. Let me see. Let me look at our list here.
Yes. I'm looking at the list right now. I'm feeling burned out.
I'm feeling inspired, optimistic, relieved. Yeah, these are good words, and we tend to not have those kinds of words. Even still, I'm reading this and I'm like, oh, I probably should put this up somewhere so I can think more. I'm
going to go home and put this on my fridge, because I frequently struggle I just always have, and I don't really know the reason, but I have for a lot of years struggled to really be able to name my feelings. I can tell you all the symptoms of, I can describe all the behaviors, but the feeling behind what I'm doing has always been really hard for me to identify. So this needs inventory, and feelings inventory is definitely something I want to put up in a prominent place, because it seems really helpful.
Feelings are grouped into two different groups in this PDF. Feelings when needs are fulfilled, and feelings when needs are not fulfilled. And usually, if we're having a conflict or something, it's needs not being fulfilled. So these are helpful too. I'm feeling annoyed, embarrassed. Angry is the first one. And I've seen this image on Facebook a number of times recently of an iceberg. And anger is like the tip of the iceberg sticking out of the top. And then down underneath the water, where it's the huge part of the iceberg,
right, like 80% of the iceberg,
are all of the feelings that are probably behind anger. And as somebody who struggles with anger, that's super helpful, because I could say a lot that I feel angry, but if I get to some of those other emotions, it's actually more helpful to identify what's actually going on with me and why I'm reacting with anger. What's behind the anger, rather than just I'm angry.
So with nonviolent communication, I think it's important to state that just like when we start with an observation, it increases the likelihood that the other person, with total neutrality, that the other person will want to hear what's next. So when we talk about our feelings and we name them as our feelings, we're really just taking our own responsibility for what is happening in the moment, right?
Yes.
So I'm not trying to put on them anything. I'm just taking my own responsibility for my own experience in the moment. And I think that also, that just really helps them be able to really hear in a way that they don't feel attacked. And like you said, that they don't get on the defensive, but they're really just hearing what I'm able to name for myself.
That reminds me of something I learned when I first got married. That was it took some time for me to really wrap my brain around this. It's another thing that we learn growing up, unintentionally, I think, just because this is the way we talk about things and use language. We say, And my